Hello guys, and welcome to my channel. I'm Anna, a digital fantasy artist, and today we'll be talking about the difficulties of being consistent as a beginner artist. I've been wanting to do this video for so long because consistency is such an important thing to talk about, but there are so many misconceptions about being consistent, and honestly, I feel like the meaning of the word consistency is really misrepresented. That's why I think that consistency is a myth, because it's not actually real. It's really inside the grind mindset, and we are in 2024. We need to be thinking about our mental health and about things being sustainable for a longer term, and not only do this, do that, and do 8 hours of work right off the bat. But before I start the video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this piece. I'm painting my OC Coraline, and it's based on the Fantasia from Disney, where there are lots of centaur people and they are dressed in really cute clothes. If you've seen Fantasia, you will remember. And this piece honestly pushed me a lot, and I only spent 6 hours on it. I could have spent more time in the background, but I'm pretty okay with how it turned out, and I really hope you guys like the speed paint. If you have any questions about what I didn't film everything because the focus of the video is about talking about being consistent. But if you guys have any doubts about how I painted anything, please leave it down in the comments. And now, without further ado, let's talk about the difficulties about being consistent as a beginner artist. So the first topic that I wanted to talk about is the difficulty of starting out. I feel like when we talk about consistency, we already kind of imagine someone who has an easy time just starting things. It's like the do it culture. It's just wake up and do it, and just do it every day. And honestly, sometimes it's not even about doing it every day, it's just starting out. I feel like especially in art, we have so many fears around just sitting down and painting. We have the art block, we have the white canvas fear of just not knowing what to do. And I feel like we don't really talk about the inability of starting something out, and sometimes it gets so bad that people just do anything but paint. Like whenever I'm kind of in a bad patch with my art, I'll do anything else. Like I'll cook, I'll clean, I'll honestly just study whatever you want me to study, but I will not sit down and paint because it's like a fear of not being able to do something, and the more I ignore it, the worse it gets. So I feel like this is the first thing. And honestly, after you are able to start out, getting into a routine can be really hard as well, because honestly, even if you have a really good day and you paint something for like, I don't know, 4 hours, let's say you had a really good day, sometimes the bad part or the hard part, it's doing it again tomorrow, you know? So I feel like when we talk about consistency, we already think that the person who is trying to be consistent has such an easy time just opening her agenda or his agenda or their agenda and just honestly writing down what they're going to do and just sitting down and doing it. And honestly, before starting out, you actually need to know what you're going to do. And sometimes that is the hard part, always knowing what to do every single day. How can you be consistent if you don't know where you're going, you know? And so you can tell me, oh, so you just need to figure out where you're going. But it's honestly not that easy. Sometimes you start a project and it honestly just crumbles upon itself. So if that's what you thought would work out, what do you do now that didn't work out? You know, there's so many little mazes within being consistent that are so hard to navigate through. Another thing in the difficulty of starting out is that you need to kind of be your own parent or like teacher, so you need to keep yourself in check. And honestly, it's so much easier when there is someone else to like push you and tell you to do things, because everyone likes to say that they are a self-taught artist, but no one actually wants to talk about how hard it is to make yourself get out of bed in a Saturday morning and sit down and paint for 5 hours. Like, you don't have anyone like tracking how good or how bad you are in certain subjects. You need to be the student and the teacher. You need to be able to make yourself do things that in other areas of your life someone else would do that for you. So I think it's really, really hard. And here we don't even talk about people who have mental health conditions or have other work to do, that have 9-to-5s, that are doing art in the side, that have children to take care of. So it's really hard to just tell someone, oh, you can just sit down and do it. Like, it's honestly, there are so many other things that go into this equation, and the fear of starting out can be so paralyzing that you will literally just give up. The second topic that I want to talk about is making bad art. I know this video is kind of coming out as really sad, but I think it's really important to address the problems around being consistent and the myth of just consistency and work mindset that we have in today's day and age, before we can actually find solutions and like healthy solutions for being consistent. But another really difficult thing is when you start making bad art. And there is a quote that I really like. I don't know who said it, but I think it goes like, before you're good, you were bad, and before you were bad, you started. Honestly, I have no idea. But what it means, it's basically that for you to get good at anything, you have to be really bad at it. And that is just the first step. So it really does make sense, and you can get that to any other areas of life, like learning math, cooking, driving, anything. Like, you were going to make mistakes. You can't just bet that the first time you try something, you're already going to be really good. And making bad art can be really unmotivating, especially when we have so many social media and so many exposure to art today that you can't even run away from other people's art. You are constantly exposed to people who are better than you, and it doesn't matter what level you are always going to find someone who is better than you. And it can really get to your head that you are never going to be good enough, that you are never going to learn everything that art has to be learned. And if you think about it, people who paint, like, we are trying to learn how the world works and how the light works and how to come up with interesting compositions. And it's so many things, like, I need to know how the light looks on beaches or within mountains and everything. So you really need to be kind to yourself, because you're not going to learn everything in, 3 years. It's really a process of a lifetime. And even after a whole lifetime, there are still things you can do to learn more about art. And when I say learn more, I don't mean paint exactly how the things are in real life. I mean that even if you have a cartoon style or more of an anime kind of style, you are always going to have something that you can improve on. And that is just normal. Like, don't let it get to you. Making bad art is something that you are going to have to deal with your whole life. Because it doesn't matter what skill level you have, there is always something more you could do with your own art. And especially if you try different mediums. Like, I've seen digital artists, they are moving to traditional right now, and they realize they don't know anything about traditional art. If you don't have a strong mindset, you won't be able to learn anything, because you are always going to be doubting yourself and comparing yourself to others who are more experienced than you. So I feel like the fear of making bad art can be really paralyzing to beginner artists, because that's basically all you're going to make in the first years of learning art. You are going to have a hard time figuring out all the rules, and it can be really unmotivating, and you just need to know that it's completely normal and it's the only way to grow. And all the artists that you look up to, they had to struggle with the same things you had to struggle with. Now, obviously, everyone has a different circumstance, and everyone has a different amount of time that they can dedicate to art. And it doesn't really matter if you are planning on going professional or if you have art as a hobby. You are going to have some difficulties because you are going to be learning. So it's important to know that that is something, and it can really affect your consistency, because even if you have a good schedule and a good plan, and even if you have the strength to start something, if you only keep seeing bad results and you don't have the mindset that it's normal, you can just give up entirely, because you don't see the point in making something if you don't see how much you're improving. But the important thing here is to push through and see that if you actually study art in a way that helps you understand the fundamentals, you have to see yourself improving. If you're doing it right, you are going to improve. The third topic that I wanted to talk, that I think really affects how a beginner artist is consistent, is the imposter syndrome. Again, it kind of goes hand to hand with the difficulty of making bad art, but I feel like the imposter syndrome, it goes when you are already seeing some results, but it's never good enough for you. So let's say that you got into a really good study habit, and you are practicing the fundamentals, and you are drawing, and you are starting to paint in grayscale, but then you open your phone to Instagram and you see an artist who is able to render skin and paint backgrounds. You will literally throw every single improvement you had in the last 4 months in the trash, because all you can see are the things that you cannot paint. So it's really about believing that you are never going to be good enough, and that can really affect your consistency, because it's really easy to get an imposter syndrome today's age, especially if you don't have a realistic style, if you are more of a, minimalistic style, or not really exaggerated rendering style. Sometimes you can feel like you are doing bad art, or your art is not detailed enough, or it's cartoony and it's not good enough, and your style, no one's ever gonna like your style. So it's really important for you to be your best friend. And again, social media, it can be good to get inspiration, to make art friends, but you really need to have a strong mindset in regards to your learning, so it doesn't destroy your consistency in studying art. Again, with imposter syndrome, I feel like it's about not only seeing some improvement and then kind of auto-destroying yourself because you're not as good as you should be, but it's about really becoming your worst enemy. So I feel like a lot of beginner artists have a difficulty because they haven't a good idea, and they have a plan and they have motivation, but when they finally sit down to paint, it doesn't come as they wanted. So it's almost as if there isn't really a connection between your brain and your hand, Like your skill is not in the same level as your brain, and that can really destroy your mental health as a beginner artist, because you just want to be able to paint interesting like scenes from your imagination and your characters, and you can just get really upset because even if you are doing somewhat of a good job, it's just not how you wanted it to be. So I feel like it's kind of you being your worst enemy. And something I really see that destroys a beginner's consistency is when you're really hard on yourself to achieve a certain skill in a short amount of time. So you can't expect yourself to paint realistic or to know how to paint lightning and know how to paint, I don't know, mountains in 3 months. Like if you just began painting and learning how to draw and learning the fundamentals, it's going to take you years. And I don't want to say that to demotivate you, I just want it to kind of give you a reality check, because it's not going to be easy. But the thing about life is that honestly, nothing is easy. Nothing. Like nothing that is meaningful, it's just going to be easy, you know? It's not. So it's about choosing what matters to you. And if you want to spend your life learning how to paint and going through this journey that it's hard but it's so beautiful, then it's a choice that you need to make, knowing that it's going to take you years to get to a certain skill level. And I don't want to be a pessimist, but I think we need to be realistic and not have so many unrealistic expectations with ourselves. The last thing that I wanted to talk about that I feel like it really makes the beginner artist's life hard. And when I say beginner artist, I'm actually talking about me and my experience and what I've seen, obviously, but I don't want to say it like I'm already advanced. No, actually these things that I'm talking about, I think it's not only for beginner artists, it's for anyone who are in the art field, because they are really normal fears. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about is the fear of failure. Especially this one, I feel like it can be really bad with beginner artists, because when you're beginning, you have nothing. Like you don't know anything. You have no idea what you're doing, which is normal. But I feel like this fear of failure, it honestly follows artists in every stage of their lives. And honestly, it probably follows everyone else in this world, because it's completely normal. And the fear of failure for me is thinking that you cannot do it. You just can't. And I feel like it could stem from personal life issues. It could maybe stem from your parents. I feel like as artists we have such a hard time with our families telling them that we want to follow this path professionally. Not all parents, they're going to be supportive. So it could really come from that, and because it's really hard to, especially at a young age, to go against what our parents believe and say, no, I can do this, I can be a full-time artist, when you aren't even sure if you can. Which is kind of sad, but I just want to say it because it is completely normal. But the fear of failure, it can get really bad when you start giving up constantly, you know, and it kind of matches with the difficulty of starting out. But I feel like with starting out, even though you are afraid of failing, you haven't done anything. But with the fear of failure, it's like you've just finished your portfolio and you have like really good pieces. You have 8 pieces, but you look at it and all you can think of is, no one's going to hire me and everything's bad and I didn't do enough. So it can really get detrimental to your health, and it can just ruin any consistency you've managed to acquire in your beginning stages of painting. So it can just be really, really, really bad, and it could lead to art block, which I feel like art block is not a problem of not knowing what to do, because you've already painted is just a sudden like thinking that you are incapable of doing it, and just thinking that everything you paint is awful. And honestly, if you are experiencing lots of fear of failure in terms of art, I think it's good if you take a step back, you know? Like, obviously being consistent has all this idea that you can't stop, but it's not that. That's why I keep saying that consistency is a myth, because it's not about grinding yourself to death or keeping an art routine the same for 5 years. It's honestly about knowing what's best for you. And if you are getting really anxious about your future as an artist, if you are getting anxious about your skill level, and if you start painting and it becomes a chore for you, it becomes something that gives you anxiety, that it's really, really bad, then maybe it is good for your consistency to step back and don't paint for a while, you know? I will never tell you to stop painting like for once and for all, because that is really sad, because if you are painting, it's something that brings you joy. But the moment that painting becomes something that is just making you feel so unwell, it's the moment that you need to really relax and take a step back and remember why you paint and let it be natural. If you keep putting pressure on yourself, if you keep just forcing yourself to be consistent as an artist, you are not going to make good art. It's the same as forcing yourself to paint like when you are feeling really tired. It's not going to work. So really, it's about the balance. And again, if you are in a position where you only have 1 hour per day to paint and you always feel really stressed about it, you need to remember why you started painting in the first place. It doesn't need to be something that is bad for you, and every single fear that I talked here, they are really true and really real, but they are not something that it's supposed to control you. There are a fear to be held and to be understood, but it's not something that should control your life or should make you stop doing something that makes you happy. And even if you are a beginner artist and if you are feeling everything that I just said here, just remember that you are not alone and that everyone feels like this. And the important thing is to keep doing what you love and remember why you found joy on it. But we're already heading towards the end of the video, guys, but I thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and I'm sorry that it's really like a bleak topic, but next week's video we're going to be talking about 5 tips for being consistent as a beginner artist. So it's a more positive and solution based video, but I still hope you felt understood and heard, because there are so many common feelings as beginner artists, and one of them are all the topics that I covered in this video. And if you like my video, please subscribe and leave a like. I just started YouTube, so it would really help me. And if you guys had any doubts or if you have any video suggestions, please feel free to leave a comment below. This is the final painting. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you next week. Bye!